we are going to, is going to go to the G20 with a memo there. That is the end. It will be circulated. Your point of departure. We need positive response like what you are saying, Your Excellency. In your heart, working in a time of education as well, that is, you've been doing, you want to see results. You don't want to depart in this world and then things are not being solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you like to address it?
If, through the moderators and Your Majesty, if I could just do a very quick exercise. How many of us are on WhatsApp? Just hands up. How many of us go, yay, when there's a new invitation to a WhatsApp group? That's exactly how it feels when you create a new initiative instead of strengthening the ones that exist. That is the reality of our times. There are so many very good initiatives that are already existing. And in my short life, I have come to learn that it is better to enhance and improve that which my brother or sister has started than to create my own thing. If somebody is already doing something that we could strengthen, and Your Excellency, I believe in your traversing the world and in your levels of UNESCO and also the ambassadorial duties, there must have been that one thing, I want to believe, that you think if scaled up, this would be it. Perhaps then, instead of paving a new road in a thick forest, it would be best that you show us the path. The suggested path then can be enriched with the thoughts of and the intellect of everybody that is here. And I think that's what spirituality is about. And that's why I said that I think in these conversations we should not be talking about faith and religion. We should go a bit higher, which is the spirituality. Every living being has got a spiritual connection. It's like computers that access the internet. All our devices now are pinging at one server. So when we send good stuff, then the server responds in exponential terms with good stuff. If we send negative energy or vibrations, that's exactly what happens. So my proposal would be that I would probably highly consider enhancing an existing initiative over building a new one or a new model.
Thank you so much. Please, Francesca.
I feel like we're preaching to the converted in this room, but there are big gaps between what's happening on the ground and the policy spaces, and definitely there's not enough. There's not, if you look at the impact of climate change on the ground and the disasters, government is really struggling to respond to that effectively. But the faith leaders and the faith communities are already there. They're already trying to shelter people and feed them and look after them. So I don't think we have to reinvent. I think we've got what we need, but we need to think very seriously about what is our roles and responsibilities. What is it that I can do? What is it that my faith community, that my kingdom, that I can do? I mean, this is what we really need to think about and be prepared, try and inform ourselves. I think knowledge is power in these instances. So, let's educate ourselves, keep educating ourselves, and try and do the cross-fertilization that's needed, because what we need is there. I think it's just connecting the dots and making sure that people are really coming to the right spaces. So just because you're a faith leader doesn't mean you shouldn't be involved in the climate discussions. In fact, you should be there. What I've noticed with the Presidential Climate Commission in South Africa, they've been very active. It's run by the President's office. They're taking it very seriously. But the faith commissioner, there was one, but wasn't given enough support to really speak out for the faith sector. And now we're looking at it again. So there's gaps, right? So how can we support each other effectively? And I think that's the thing that we need to be seeing. Thanks.
Thank you. Would you?
Thank you very much. I would think that addressing global environment crisis demands integrative approaches that harmonize scientific, cultural, and spiritual knowledge. African indigenous spirituality as an advanced spiritual knowledge system revealed by Nkosi Moya Imboni, Dr. Uzuleze Khadebe, provides a foundational framework for restoring the sacred balance between humans and nature. So by embracing those principles, G20 nations can pioneer transformative environmental policies that are ecologically sustainable, socially just, and spiritually informed, ensuring resilient futures for all life on Earth, meaning that we should all work together, combining all the models and policies and also the things that we've done or written around preserving our nature and also preserving human life. Thank you.
Before we get thank you. Before we get another question, and then if you would like to direct your question to one of the presenters, please state it so that we can be more assertive. But as I was listening to you, I was just thinking even about the question I directed to David about the young leadership, and then I just realized that it is sensitive to all of us, women and human beings living on this planet nowadays. We are talking about a necessity and trying to learn how to live the basics, go back to the basics, how to eat, how to sleep, how to relate, how to move ourselves without damaging our Mother Earth. And we have young leaders here, and it's a hope. But as I was thinking, and I leave this to you, I'm so glad to see hope in our dialogues when we talk about the climate crisis. And as we have discussed also issues such as artificial intelligence, and then in different sessions and rooms, spiritual traditions, spiritual wisdom, and spiritual practices, and they are living in the same age, these things, and we are all using WhatsApp, we are all using the internet, streaming, artificial intelligence, and that per se is a threat, might be a threat to our Mother Earth because it consumes resources. So I see hope, but in practical terms, how can this hope change our way of living, our behavior, our dependency on what we dress, on what we even eat, but on what we even communicate and the mean we communicate, what we watch, is it necessary? And so that this hope may really become a relearn of living, and looking back will certainly help us move ahead, move forward upright. So let's get another question from the audience, please. We have three. We'll start with that lady there, and then 4 questions here. Do we have a microphone over there? Thank you.
Thank you very much to our moderators and the panel. In trying to understand moving forward in a sustainable manner, based on the actual realities on the ground. My name is Phumintlanhla Madida. I've had the pleasure of working for the United Nations development program called the UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Drought and Desertification. Empirical evidence reveals, and research reveals that in most African communities, there's too much attachment to the value of the cow, cattle, and its sacredness. And probably you might also add goats to that. And they are the major reasons that cause soil degradation. And Africans do not believe in downstocking. they believe in overstocking because cattle are a symbol of wealth. They are a symbol of respect. How do we balance using our traditional cultural and indigenous practices, these cultural divides? Because it has not been easy. One of the reasons there's overstocking, they'll tell you, no, we can't. It's not our fault. The soils, the dongas increase. We have the fertile soil is being lost. The soil for building new homes for their children is being lost, but they will not overstock. For some reason, they will not. They'll tell you it's the road to the deep where the cattle are washed. It's not our fault. You know, how do we deal with such beliefs and mentalities so that we ensure we address the climate challenge? Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name?
Piwintlantla Madida.
Madida. Would you like to direct your question to any of our distinct presenters?
Ngokuzithoba nangokuhlonipha, probably 3. I think His Majesty Inkosi and umama onje umelele ubaba ubheki umam Thembi. Oh, by the way, David. I think the 3 would be best placed to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will ask you to be brief, okay? So that we still have questions from the audience. Okay. So let's start there, and then yes, let's take other questions, and then you can also address that.
Thank you so much. I'm called Reverend Nick Talbale from the Organization of African Instituted Churches. One of the reasons of the founding of these churches from the late 19th century was to turn around the theology that had come from the West, by then what we call the West, which is the North now. It was when the Bible was translated in local languages, and some of these African Christians started saying, a Jesus who doesn't agree with the colonization. A Jesus who doesn't agree with the economic exploitation and the cultural domination. And these churches were demonized. Up to now, they are called names. That is not my subject. But what I'm saying is that what we are talking about is that there is a knowledge system that has undermined African knowledge systems. So we have to work hard, not to defend ourselves, but to make sure that we are using what we have. But I'll go to the whole issue. This is general to all. In the Conference of Parties, the one on climate change, unfortunately, this was split into 3. The COP on climate change, the COP on biodiversity, the COP on desertification. So it has sort of dismantled the wholeness of the whole debate. But I'll focus on the Conference of Parties on biodiversity. As we deal with the climate change, let me talk about agriculture. A lot is being promoted for economic benefit of those who are manufacturing or who are producing the things, like they are saying, what you need is GMO, genetically modified, crops. How do we bring this cultural resourcefulness of the seeds, of the crops, the sorghum, the everything that is nutritious, the various vegetables that are resilient, climate resilient? I walk around, I come from Uganda, but when I come to the southern region and walk to the supermarkets in South Africa, I barely find an indigenous
Excuse me, Mr.
vegetable.
What's your name again?
Nectar. So,
Lictor, thank you. Francesca will love to address your question.
okay, let me finish. how do we harness the cultural resources of Africa, since this is about culture, in relation to biodiversity and resilience to climate change, and most of those resources are not documented. Thank you.
You. And Dr. Melanie will also want to address that. And we'll take one more question, and then we'll come up to the front so that they can address it. If you can state your name, and then if you would like to refer your question to any of the presenters, please do it.
Thank you so much. I'm Neelan Carrican. I'm the president of JOASA. That's the Judicial Officers Association of South Africa. I'm also a senior magistrate based at Randburg Court in Gauteng, Johannesburg. These terms, Ubuntu, Talanoa, we ordinarily, particularly Ubuntu, I can understand from today, Talanoa. Ubuntu is generally something that we deal with when we deal with aspects in our court, when we deal with socio-economic rights and the like. Now, I think what is also important when we engage with our traditional leadership and our first citizens of the country, we also need to make sure that we are able to enforce these aspects that we are complaining about and practice is not being achieved. I think it's important that at some point in time, in as much as on a spiritual level, we are making sure that we pray, we think about, we discuss, but ultimately we're going to need to enforce. And I want you to be acutely aware that in terms of the judiciary is not exactly what you think it might be, particularly in South Africa. We don't really have a single independent judiciary because it's fragmented. Different levels of judicial officers are treated differently. So that is the type of parity that needs to be resolved, because when we have effective and efficient judicial officers that are well cared for, they will be able to enforce and ensure that all these aspects are properly attended to, because we have environmental laws. It comes to the courts. When you need to come through to complain that this company or that company is creating pollution, damaging our rivers, or there's overgrazing, or whatever the case might be, ultimately someone needs to enforce, and it's the judiciary currently. And I want you to be acutely aware that this issue of an unindependent judiciary, although we have this perception that there is this, is not unique to South Africa. And this research you will do on your own, because I can take the whole day just discussing this. This is not unique to South Africa. In Africa, in other countries within Africa, we have that same problem where we might have judges and then you have magistrates. And remember, the term magistrate is an old colonial term. And we've far surpassed that. A magistrate in South Africa can impose life imprisonment. A judge in the High Court can do the same. But they are called different terms, and they are treated differently because of what they are called. So all I'm imploring on you as our leadership is that in as much as we might pray, we might talk about issues, you need to appreciate that when it comes to enforcement, we need some type of intervention from the leadership so that we can put pressure on government to create proper parity so that the enforcers are happy to enforce. They must not be abused. They must not be financially strained, because right now, our magistrates in South Africa are currently going under debt review. They cannot pay their debt. So just look into that, and it doesn't only affect South Africa, it affects other countries. So from my side, I'd like to know what type of intervention and resolutions can be created in order to fast track and look into the crisis that South Africa, for example, is currently undergoing, because it is a constitutional crisis that directly affects aspects related to climate change and our environment. Thank you.
So we have one more question here, and from Magistrate Neelam, and then we'll come back to our presenters.
Thank you, moderators on the panel. I'm Prince Kekana, and His Majesty King Bongo Matlangu. My input in this case is that while we are discussing all these strategies, the question is, we have governments which are constitutionally implementing certain policies. And when we are discussing here, for example, they're not part and parcel of these discussions. And whereas they are policy implementers, and they are also policy developers, we should be able to come up with a strategy and tactics that whatever we discuss here, should be able to engage them. Because some of these things, they can only be implemented in our different societies through legislation or through integration of what we propose in like spiritual practices that can address climate change, which can be put in our constitution. Once our strategies are put in the constitution, then we'll be able to implement them because they'll be legal acceptable by our leaders, our political leaders. So what is much more critical is how do we therefore take our policy suggestions or belief to ensure that they influence the policy development which will also influence our government constitution. Because that is our leaders that we have in different countries, they are policy implementers. So that is what I can recommend, that how do we therefore package the integration of our spiritual practices as well as the interfaith strategies into G20 to influence the policy or legislation development, which can therefore be implemented to help the vulnerable populations and address whatever challenge that they have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you still have a question? Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm greeting my king and my magistrate and everyone in the house. I'm very sorry, people. I've been raising my hands from downstairs until today. No one want to give me any opportunity. But there's a lot of things that is left behind. There's a lot of things that is left behind in this G20. One, we've got children here are sitting at home. They must sit at home until they wait for 65 years, 60 years for grant, what you call it, old age grant. They're not supposed to get job if they are more than 35 years, if they're 36. Obviously, they're not going to get a job in South Africa, which is not acceptable. Because us, as adult fathers and mothers, we have to support the other people, those who are supposed to work. And yet, the government of South Africa and those mothers, you people who say they're number one, they said we are house husband, and we don't want to work. We're sitting at home. I mean, I'm talking about you young husband, whatever. There is what you call it, housewives, which is, for me, I was very, very furious about that. These guys are down the road here. They can't even walk up here. I'm talking about presidents and Gwetmantash and all those people are down there. They're supposed to walk up here and listen to us here so that they can destroy that constitution. That constitution was wrote by two guys. That constitution doesn't help us at all. I'm the king. He is the king. He's my king. But we are nothing in South Africa, I'm telling you. South Africa is not a country that is accepting his own people. Those people we elected them. They only come back to us when they need us to employ them. But otherwise, they don't care about us. They're making their own laws, they're doing their own things, they don't represent anyone in South Africa. Two, we've got children here in the schools, in our schools. You know what's happening in our schools? They're beating the teachers. They're doing this and that. If teacher can hit the child back, that teacher's in trouble. You have to be fired and it must be taken away the license of what you call of teaching. That is not, it's not nice for us, because when we grew up, we used to respect all the adult people. No one is respecting anyone now today because of the human right of South Africa. If those children, they've got a lot of rights. I don't say the child must be killed by the school, but to discipline the child is the right way to teach the child, to give the child the right, the way of growing up for his own. We won't have any leader for tomorrow who's going to lead this country. We've got a problem about unemployment in South Africa. It's got the same problem. People are coming, they always come and ask food in our places, in our kingdoms. We don't have a food because we are not recognized by the government of South Africa. We don't have nothing. They're earning 400,000 rand a month, but they can't even sacrifice nothing to poor people. They don't give anything.
So
they can make a lot of work, but they can't make a lot of work because they want to give people 375 rand. Those people are not working.
So
what is the 375 rand?
So thank you for sharing with us this that you have been holding for all these days. And now would you like to address our panelists with a question?
Obviously, I'm going to do it. But for me, I'm very sick as I'm sitting here. I'm telling you people I'm sick because I'm worried about the guys that's sitting down the road in the parliament. They're doing nothing. They're busy doing corruption down there. They're fitting for themselves. The old people, but they don't want the young people to work. They said the young people, they mustn't work. But those people are from 60 years and above, up to 80 years. Some of them, they can't even walk up the steps. They're using a lift. But they're sitting in the parliament. They don't want anybody to work. I'm very, very worried about that. We don't have a land to plow food, as you've been talking about that. So those guys went to America. They went to talk lie to President Trump. They're not fired. No one is killing anyone in South Africa. South Africa is a very peaceful country. That was happening maybe before, a long time ago, but not everyone. Us, our children, they're dead in numbers because when they see somebody working in the farm, they shoot him. They said they thought it's a baboon. I thank you.
So we have 5 questions and or 5 points, and so I would kindly ask to our presenters to briefly address it, and because of the time, I will ask for each one, starting with Francesca, to address one of the points or one of the questions, and then up to our last panelist. And hopefully we'll be able to come back to our presenters and then have their inspirational inputs and get good inspiration out of this session.
Romana. I think the biodiversity chap might have just left, did he? Oh, no, he's still here. Okay, good. So make no mistake, there's a lot of problems in this world. And if we don't get our problem statement and analysis right, we can't work to address it. So I think the points made in the spirit of Talanoa are very important, whether it's the magistrates or the people who are suffering due to poor governance, or the fact that we've got genetically modified seeds coming onto our continent en masse. So, I mean, we work on this issue of the funding of GMOs and the push to change seed policies around Africa. It's something that we're very active as an organization. And in point of fact, we have a letter that's active right now from faith leaders in Africa, which you can sign, which says we don't want, in particular, it's the Gates Foundation. And let me just say, I'm not anti the Gates Foundation or anti-vaccines. I'm science-based. But the Gates Foundation has been funding the push to change our seed laws, which means we no longer have access to indigenous seeds and systems like that. So it's a really important issue. You can go to our website and have a look at it if you're interested. But it's active right now, so sign the letter. If you want to know how to get involved with these things, how do we tackle it, I think there are many, and SAFSI is only just one small player. There are many other civil society actors who are working hard on these issues, whether it's how GMO is being brought to Africa, the industrialization of our farming. Earlier on, I was speaking to the Consumer Goods Council, not part of this conference, about how farmed animals are being caged. We're moving to this industrialization, this disrespect to animals, disrespect to humans. It's a global problem. I mean, we can see it in the wars that are going on. I'm not going to go into that, but we have a very serious problem in humanity, and it's all of our problem. Whether it's lack of resources, whether it's these corporate pushes, we've been driven by consumerism and greed at a extremely terrible level. But I feel that in a democratic country, and I know South Africa's got a lot of problems, but we are a democracy. The constitution may not be being followed. We may not be implementing things. But there are hard-fought cases and achievements being fought in the courts here. We've got the first ever successful legal climate case due to air pollution, which it happened in South Africa. So there's some really interesting things going on. And so what I want to say to try and inspire you is that there's very good work going on by committed individuals who are working hard on these things, whether it's the basic income grant, how we hold politicians to account. These are very real problems, very, very real problems. But I don't want us to despair, because I know that there's people, they may not have enough resource, but they're definitely interested in hearing from people of the problems they have. And I want to encourage everyone to get involved, get engaged, take your anger and do something with it, not hit someone, but, join these movements, because they are there. And I think also in the faith community, there's a lot that we can be doing to support each other. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Francesca. Can we follow this order? And then, David, would you like to address one of the questions? I think, yes.
Yeah, thanks. I will start with Madida. There is too much attachments to cattle and goats and all that, and I think it's something that goes beyond what Western science or brick and mortar science would like to put it as. I want to believe that if you go to the Abantu community, the rearing of cattle is not as is projected in the books of history and geography and economics as written by somebody else. In my own community, the Agikoyo, the reason for actually keeping those goats and cattle is also spiritual, because my own people believe that men offer sacrifices on behalf of their communities to our God, Ngai, so that then some of these healings can happen on our land. So it's not a one-sided thing of attachment because of wealth. It is usually an issue of spirituality and a way of life. Number two, before colonization, and that's not long ago, it was okay for one homestead to socially, in a socio-economic fabric, own 1,800 heads of cattle and goat, because it would not necessarily belong to one man or one woman. But I will go back to the history of colonization in my country and demonstrate how this was reduced into a yoke of debt and created a problem that was not actually a problem. When the white man came, they realized that the only way to destroy and be able to conquer my ancestors, my great-grandfathers and grandfathers, was to make sure that the wealth they had did not belong to them, but systematically to do so. So they introduced two taxes, one called the heart tax, and the other one was the livestock tax. Now, that heart tax was supposed to be imposed upon every structure that you have in your household. Now, being that we don't have cousins, we don't have uncles, we don't have cousins, we have brothers and sisters of our fathers and our mothers in our communities, then that meant that every small structure made of mud was to be taxed. Essentially, people that were supposed to live in a diverse, socioeconomically woven fabric were forced to stay in one house, and it was no longer going to be possible to continue with the way of life the way they were supposed to continue with it. I have a case of people who were asked to reduce their 1,800 heads of cattle to 5 in less than 3 months because you're getting taxed for every 5. And that was a way to make sure that the colonial master had my ancestors working in their farm, because then they needed money to pay the taxes. And that is why, for me, the debt that we are talking about and the new financial architecture cannot be addressed until we undo the issues that have been imposed on us, because it is systematic debt. Therefore, while I agree that in the current times that livestock keeping in large scale is actually a problem, we must look at the model in which it is causing those problems. The model that it is doing that is that one person owns 40,000 hectares of land, and it's okay. Their cattle don't cause a problem because then they have 40,000 hectares of land. But because my land has been reduced to less than 1 acre for about 5 households, then even 10 heads of cattle are a problem. And this is an issue of equity more than it's an issue of disaster, climate change, land degradation, and biodiversity loss. In the issues of biodiversity, as Reverend Dale raised, I think that there is a scheme through which we have been able to work as faith communities, and the UN Convention on Biological Diversity has been very progressive, and I like to always say this, that it was under the leadership of our very good mother and sister, Elizabeth Maruma Mrema, who is now Deputy Executive Director at the UNEP, who opened up the spaces for faith communities to be able to have their sort of own constituency. This is not the way I would advocate for it to go at the UN Environment Assembly or at the UN Climate Corps, no. Because the people that we point fingers at, the parliamentarians we are talking about, those that are negotiating bad policy, they are Catholic, they belong to our communities, they are Muslims. We should create a safe space for them to come, and they will be heard, so that then they can also be able to hear us. We cannot demand to be listened to if we do not offer a space to listen to others as well. And this is a conversation that I think is commonplace, written in all the spiritual texts. It is in our traditional spiritualities, but following it is usually sort of a bit of a challenge, but it's a self-imposed challenge. I will give a practical example when people were invited to do meditation during the COP27 by the Brahma Kumaris. They just thought they will ask for a room and people can come and sit quietly, do meditation. They only wanted to do it for a day, for 30 minutes. But what it turned out to be was that the negotiators were so pressed in the negotiation rooms, it was so heated there, that they would say that they need a minute or two to go and breathe out, and they will go and hide in the meditation room. And that is where now conversations like, for example, we were able to avert ocean geoengineering as a policy that was attempted to be introduced underhand while everybody else was talking about loss and damage. But we can get into details of that later. How to take policy suggestions to government, Prince. I think we have to stop demonizing politicians and politics. I believe that inside of us is born a political leader, whether we like it or not. The mere fact that a mother has got to negotiate with her infant child when they are going to breastfeed, and if they don't, then the child protests by crying in church or in the mosque. That is politics already. We have got to start treating, as faith leaders and spiritual leaders, politics as a vocation, as a calling to leadership by God. Because I have learned in these systems, you cannot change the system by shouting at it. You have got to be inside that system and refuse to be corrupted by it. And that is why, for example, I chose to accept to run for regional facilitator in Africa because I could see the only global headquarters of the UN in the global south did not have adequate African representation. Now, 2022, we had the second lowest accredited organizations to the UNEP in Africa. Today, now, Africa has got the second highest accredited organizations. That means we have more space to make more noise and to change more policy. I thank you.
David, I was a congresswoman in Brazil, and I can assure you that what you said is so true, that if we want politicians, representatives, those that pass bills and make policy, to listen to what we have to say, we need to create safe space for them to be also listened to. That is so true. Thanks.
No, thank you very much. I know spirits are high. A lot is happening. I had a frustration through the disruption. You know, wrong and wrong doesn't make right. One after all. In anything, apply the spirit of Ubuntu. Hence, I said it that G20, remember, now we are no longer dealing with an individual or each and every country. They are combined. So we are fostering the relationship and within these forums, associations, move forward. Doors are open. United Nations, doors is open. We are there. African Union, it is there. So in any pointing politician, it's like now we're running politics as well because of now there's other group that we are pushing it away. So us as kings, myself as king in the whole of Africa, and as a president of Africa, I wouldn't condemn or allow that to happen. Let's deal with the problem. Let's not deal with the person. Play the ball. Don't play the player. That's what is important. If we can ask you within the house, how many, if we can do, let's say, do the introspection in mistake that you've made, should you be crucified? Let's sit down and solve problems. So that's what is important. This platform is not here to complain, but it's the point of reference, what we are saying. Let's fix things. Let's build. Energy is not to be thrown away. It's to build. So this light with this energy, it is on because of we needed the illumination so that we can see one another and it will make sense to our lives. I've said it, I was the panelist down there. You know, when you're complaining too much, this one did this one did that. For example, here in South Africa, we don't have a genocide cases. We're the most affected nations, or we're the most affected culture, but we're happy with our white people. We're married to them, we're working together, we're fine with them. And all of that things that there's no peace here, we're peaceful. Don't instigate violence amongst ourselves because of there's something that you need from us. So that is what I can say. We are the peaceful people, and we are the country that it has any type of human being within the world, South Africa. Yet we are in the edge of the African continent. We're living with everybody. So that is why each and everyone within these burning issues, until you say now, you cannot say you know until you see. In other African countries, here in South Africa, you are living in Europe. In other African countries, there are challenges. So stand up, unite, work with other associations, with other people. What I've noticed is the politics in anywhere. You get the politics in church, you get the politics in royal houses, you get the politics in your brother's wood, anywhere, everywhere in the world. I travel. Just imagine, I'm responsible for 54 countries in Africa. I see these challenges every day. We are still privileged. You see, in Zimbabwe, just next door, people, when they were going to buy bread, they were, money in a wheelbarrow. Just a bread. Can you just imagine when they give you the tax money, that is your money for the school when the child, they give them 3 billion. So where's the value? So let's work together. Little bit by bit. And I like Mr. David with your voice like Barry White. So that you've mentioned one thing. Let's build in what is existing. Remember that there's an energy, there's an effort that was vented there. So let's build from there. You see, that is the point of departure. I heard you all. And after all, if we're going to talk, we're crying, we're rubbing shoulders of each other, we're not going to solve this problem. We need to solve this problem. You're going to come in, my president, after the panelists, then they come. So there is a point we may not ignore that. I know that you are very spiritual, it touch you. My judge, your matters is a platform of everything that we address. We're going to do the submission. Your Majesty, I do understand how much is burning, how upset it is. But that is where the enemy wants you. When you are distracted, you're making wrong mistakes. So, no. No, this is an international debate. We're not instigating any violence, and we're not going to tolerate any violence. We are dealing with such of that. Thank you very much. So over to you.
Thank you. And now I would like Dr. Melanie to address one of the questions.
Yes, thank you very much. I will add to the question that Francesca addressed. First, about that comment about colonial Christianity, I think that all forms of religion, they only exist in enculturated form. So a big problem was that the specific Western or Northern version of Christianity got brought into other countries, and they're presented as the absolute version of Christianity, which is absolutely not the case. It's just a particular Western or Northern form of Christianity. And what I see in the Pacific region is that there are theologians who work on spiritual concepts for rethinking models of development that are Christian and indigenous, but not Western or Northern. So just one example would be the concept called Wakatambu, which is about letting the land rest. And that connects to the big biblical concept of the Sabbath rest. And it can be used for modeling development structures that are not based on speed and fast progress and constant progress, but that consider the importance of periods of rest. And I think while for many communities, as we heard from David, these concepts like Talanoa or Ubuntu are precisely not concepts. It is the task for theologians to think about how to bring these lived realities into the policy discussions if we want to do that. So it's a kind of translation and bridging process which can only be done properly if the communities are brought onto the table to see, is what we are talking as theologians, does that make sense to the communities? Is it not like just using it as slogans? So I think it's always a balancing act. How do we bring these words in and at the same time see that it's really not reducible to concepts? And then about the food aspect, someone said at this forum here that food security is not just about calories. And I think the concept of food sovereignty can be something that religious communities can connect with. That religious communities are such experts at knowing the real value of food for identity, for community, for life cycle rituals, and that religious leaders really can be a moral compass in pointing out the importance not just of producing the calories to feed the people, but also in a way that makes sense to the communities and that sustains their identity, and also that is ethical, because it's not just the product on the plate that matters, but the production process. Many religious communities, for them it is actually crucial to see that the food was cooked with love. And I think it's about normalizing that spirituality is part of the discussion, and it can have a place on the table, and that we can use spiritual terms and make meaningful contributions to issues like food security.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my panelists. So please, 1 minute. We run out of time. We don't have much time, so we need to wrap it up now. Okay. Thank you very much. Just strictly 1 minute. Just
That is it.
So Nigeza, the last one. So President, then so that we can go and closure, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll just try and encompass all the questions into one answer. I think what needs to happen, first and foremost, to address the comments, questions, and concerns that we have, is to foster a cross-sectoral collaboration, which is going to involve government, indigenous institutions, scientists, civil society, and everybody involved, our communities, in order to co-create inclusive sustainability policies. This is going to allow everybody to give their comments, give their recommendations, such that at the end of the day, we have a policy that is holistic, enabling everybody to address all the issues, especially with the lady where apparently there's a problem with where the kettles go. But as David has indicated, each and every animal has a spiritual connotation. Each and every animal does respond to the problems that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Over to you, President. So if you can quickly.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think I'm going to go straight to the point, which is something that I have noticed or something that I have observed from our launchers. And if we turn a blind eye on it, I think it's very important. David mentioned it, Dr. Melanie mentioned it, and Mam Tembi Tulwane mentioned it. So I just want, it's more of, maybe it's a question that we can take it home. We are seeing that there is a challenge, climate change, which is facing the world. And to be honest, we don't seem to be having a solution. Now, what David mentioned, I want to know if we want to truly address the climate change, we need leaders who are not scientifically informed. We need the leaders who are informed, but they must be also spiritual grounded. Now, David, do you think that we are in an era where we need the spiritual leaders to be given their role in the world? I'm going to quote one example. It's all up to us whether is everything going okay in that country, yes or no. Ibrahim Traore, who is now being guided by a spiritual leader. Is this the time for us to give the spiritual leader to assist us in such topics? Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you very much. To those who are participating within the African Union and United Nations, so on the 8th of September, so we've got a climate change in summit in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. So it will take place at the African Union. So it is there. So we will discuss, and then those are the part of the platform, and hence I said it that the submission within the G20, and then they will respond swiftly. So because of we are moving, everybody is fed up. Sorry, my language is fed up about such of the situation. So please rally toward joining associations and organizations that are affiliated within the United Nations and African Union. It may be the Africa. What do you call it? European unions when you are from Europe. So please join it so that we can continue with our participation. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. And Francesca will. She needs to inform us of something, and then we are out of time, and I will close this session right after her.
I just wanted to give a very practical response. We're currently in South Africa and many countries around the world doing our nationally determined contributions, which is what we contribute to the climate change reductions. It's a process that's going on right now, and you can get involved in it. And it's also about taking the technical but making it more accessible for people. So it's another mechanism that needs to have voices in, and I really want to encourage people to look at that and to see what's going on with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for being here. And your question will be addressed by David personally, so we will be able to deepen it as much as possible. I hope you also came here with the expectation that we would have not all of our questions and distresses attended and answered. Instead, we have here people that shows that our shared humanity is the strongest foundation for addressing climate crisis, is the strongest foundation for action. And this fills the purpose of instigating and provoking. But what happens afterwards, when we go home after tomorrow, and during our daily lives and our daily choices, and especially our engagement in our organizations, communities, and speaking out, is what will certainly make a difference. And whatever we will be in 2 days or 3 days, even in different countries. Again, I say our shared humanity, our spirituality is still and will be our strongest foundation for climate action. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is over. Then we can take the photos, and then more special also the participant. I think everybody want to take the photo. Then let's start with the moderators and the panelists, and then everybody can come after that one. Thanks, President. You have substituted yourself. Come in. Thank you very much. Now we'll start with the moderators, the panels, please, and then after that you come, please. Thank you.